Hey everyone, my name is Mary-Rosalyn Naylor and I'll be talking about Google Street View today. So first we're going to go through some of Google Street View's features and how to use it. Then we'll talk more about how to integrate it into some of our lesson plans and use it with the existing technology in our schools. So let's get started with how to use Google Street View. So this is the Google Street View website. This is the one that you go to if you don't go through the Google Maps website. So this is strictly for Street View. We've opened up on this gallery tab here, and this is a really good place to explore what's out there for Google Street View. So each one of these places will take you to the place that's labeled. So they have some events like the Asian Games, and down here the International Balloon Festival and things like that. They also have some really cool locations. For example, the Christmas Islands, and if you come back up here, we have the Mexican National Parks and Protected Natural Areas, and railways that were important to the Indians. So this gallery is really cool to explore some of the destinations that we could take our students to using this technology. One of the cons of using this gallery view is that there's no way to actually search for what you're looking for. So if you have something specific in mind, for example, you want to take your students to the Statue of Liberty or the Taj Mahal or something like that, there's no real way to search. We'll talk about how to actually do that in a minute, but it does not happen on this gallery screen. So if you want to view this gallery screen in different ways, you can press this button over here on the right. It will put it in more of a grid form for you, so you have more on one page, or you could simply see the words instead of having a little preview. So if we go back to the previews, once you decide on a location, or if you're just sort of exploring, you can click on the pictures and it'll actually take you on a 360 view if you don't click anything. You can also use your mouse to click and drag and do your own exploring on the page. There's also a little informational screen over here, which is very helpful to get some general information about the picture you're looking at, and also a small map in this corner that will show you where it is in relation to the country as a whole. If you click this arrow button, it'll bring you to everything that's included. So this is all of the national parks. You can pick which ones interest you and sort of explore around. These are really great modules for students to use because they're easy to navigate. It's easy to find what you're looking for, and there is obviously information built in. So if we want to go back to our gallery view, so that's the gallery. Next we will talk about the apps. So this app page is where you would come to find the iOS or Android app. If you have a class set of phones or iPads or some sort of tablet, you can come here to download these apps. You can't download the apps on a laptop or a Chromebook or whatever you might have in your classroom. You'll just have to use the websites, but these are really great if you have another tool at your disposal. The next thing is the Understand tab. So this is really cool because it shows you all of the street views that are available. So all of these blue shaded areas are where street views are available. So if you're doing a specific unit on a country, let's take Spain for example, you see all of Spain is mostly blue. So chances are that if you're talking about a specific place, there's going to be a street view available. So we can use these controls over here to zoom in and out, and it'll actually show us some more cities and details. So once we find, say we're talking about Madrid, we can take this little man here and take him down to Madrid, and this will drop us right into Madrid for your students to explore. And you can see that this is available. You might not want to use this in your classrooms just because it's very basic and it doesn't have a lot of mobility. This just took us to the general Royal Palace of Madrid, but you didn't really have a lot of choices. But now that you know this is here, you can search for it more specifically later. Another cool feature here is that you can see what they're filming next. So in this fall, they are filming in all of these locations so that you'll have more options. So if you don't see something up here, you can know when it's coming, if it's coming in the near future. So if we go back to our map, that is the Understand screen. Publish, hire, and earn is more not really for our purposes. It's more for people who are wanting to make their own or make a little bit of money doing street views in their areas and uploading them here. But that's not really for our purposes. So that's the Street View website. Because of the limitations of this website, it's a lot easier to use Street View in the context of Google Maps. So I have Google Maps pulled up here. As you can see, I'm in Washington, D.C. So this is just the general layout of Google Maps. Again, you just click a place and drag your mouse to navigate around. So here we have a search bar, which is very important, something that the other website is missing. You can search for any location in the world and it will bring you to where you want to go. We have the same controls over here that will zoom in and out, and a compass over here. We also have the same little man that we can use to navigate the screen. So if we pick him up, we see that there's 3 options down here. The first one is a little yellow circle. That is actually a see inside. So that means if there's a building, specifically a museum or an important governmental building, sometimes they have inside views, so you can drag the little guy to a yellow dot and you will be able to see inside the building. The green or the blue circle, is a photosphere, which means they've taken a 360 view from somewhere. So you see this is Nationals Park. There's lots of these little views. So if we drag our little man, now we're inside the stadium. And it's a one whole 360 degree picture. So that's really cool. And the last thing that we can drag our little man to is the street view. So all of these blue lines are streets. This is where Street View gets its name. And we can drag our man to any street and it will show us the view from the street. So once you're in a location, whether you're inside a building or on a street or in a certain location, this map over here will show you where you are in relation to other places, and it'll show you, where you're going. You can even zoom this map out so you can see where you are in relation to the city. So if we press this back button, that is Google Street View in a nutshell. It's very similar. It actually works with Google Maps. So if you have that on your phone or any other device, it's super simple to use, and a lot of kids, I would venture to say, would be very familiar with this type of technology. So now let's talk about how to integrate this into some of our lesson plans. So some really great ways to use this would be to take a virtual field trip to somewhere we've been talking about, maybe to do even a scavenger hunt or something like that in a museum or a park that we've been talking about. We can use it to explore different settings in a book or a story that we're reading. So for example, if you're reading about a story that takes place in Africa, you can use this to search the city or the place that most is like the place in the book and have your students really look around and compare and contrast the differences in the African places and the cities in which they live. It would also be very cool for younger students to practice giving and receiving directions. So let's do an example of that. If we take our little guy and put him on a street, we see that we can actually navigate the street from here. So if you'll see on my mouse, there's a little arrow and there's different X's on the street. So if I press an X with my mouse, it will actually start taking me down the street. And you can go in either direction so you can follow the traffic. This would be really great for younger students to give each other directions. You could do it from a simple location that everybody knows, maybe from the school to a location nearby everyone would be familiar with, or you could individualize it and let students take each other to their houses or to their favorite places. This would be really great to work on directions and to really use their senses to understand how things work. So one partner could be doing the navigation and the other one could be giving directions. So saying go straight or take a right or take a left, and they could really navigate the world around them. So going back to a virtual field trip, I'm going to show you a little example of that. So for example, let's take the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. This is a really cool museum. It would be such a dream to be able to take all of our students to the Air and Space Museum, but as we all know, that is not always feasible for lots of reasons. So when we come to the Aerospace Museum, we see the general information on the right, or on the left, excuse me. So we have the address and some other general things. Their website is here for easy access. So now if we take our little guy, we see that there's all of these pathways, these blue lines inside the Space Museum. So that's all the places we can go in the museum. So if we just start on one side, we can tell by our map over here that we are in the airport tower, and we can actually use this to figure out where we are and what exhibits we actually want to go see. So coming back to the bigger picture, we can navigate by again clicking and dragging our mouse and sort of looking around, and also clicking on the X's to move ourselves forwards and backwards. So this is something really cool to do with your students, especially in a museum setting like this. There's a lot to be learned, there's a lot to see, lots of interesting things for them to interact with. So once you're in the museum, you can see that you can actually read a lot of these words and see some of the things. The smaller ones are a bit harder, but as you can see, the pictures and the exhibits are crystal clear. So this might be something that you want to have a PowerPoint on the day before, or it's something that you've already talked about, and then they can go see it in person so that they have sort of a background knowledge and they know what they're looking for and they know what they're looking at. Again, you can do a scavenger hunt here and find the things you've been talking about. So this is a Boeing 747 up here. So if you'd been talking about that type of airplane or the invention of some sort of airplane, we have some older models right above us. So if you had been talking about that, you could have your students find that within the museum, or find the Amanda Earhart exhibit and screenshot it and give it to you in some sort of Word document. That'd be a good way for them to get involved. So as you can see, there's tons to do here in Google Street View. It's a really great way to get your kids engaged and involved in the things that you've been learning and get them to really see for themselves what things are happening. If we can go back to the apps for 1 second on our original website, if you have a class set of phones or iPads or any sort of small tablet, and you also have access to VR technology, virtual reality goggles or anything like that, these apps actually have the ability to take any of these street views and put them in virtual reality. So that would be something really cool to integrate into your classrooms so that they get even more of an engagement and even more getting up and moving, walking around like they're actually in the museum. So that would be a really cool thing to integrate as well. So I hope you found this really interesting. I hope this gave you some things to think about and integrate into your classrooms. And I hope it was helpful. Thank you.